Let's get to our legal corner for today. Chris Dimakos, our CJAD 800 legal contributor, on a couple of really interesting stories. So as the headline says, Chris, this is great. Move over to tobacco and big pharma. Lawsuits are now targeting online companies for harming users. Starting with TikTok, let's begin with that first. So I know this is in the U.S., but obviously, if this actually goes forward, if this works, what does it mean?
Well, basically what we're seeing is a whole bunch of states, and this is apart from, if you remember, all the political discussion and narrative about who controls TikTok and whether they want them operating in the United States and how they want them to sell, control. Right. But this is completely different. This is basically each state and their attorney general saying, hey, look, we're looking at what's happening with TikTok and the usage of TikTok, and we're seeing in massive numbers young users that are suffering from anxiety, depression, and even suicide. This is it's almost an epidemic, and we want this to stop. And they're basically saying TikTok has violated the law when it comes to protecting and doing things that they know ahead of time will injure these young users. And their algorithms are set up that way, and their business is set up to try and maximize the time and exploit the addiction. So they're facing this lawsuit, and many experts are saying that it has teeth, that there are grounds there, especially when you look at the way the company is set up and how it operates in terms of the algorithms, that, yes, there wasn't much consideration for, hey, what's the long-term effect of a young 10 or 12-year-old using TikTok and scrolling on it for hours and hours.
I imagine, though, this case will take forever before anything is actually decided, no?
We've had cases like this, even in Canada. We've had a couple that's come up that have been settled out of court. TikTok obviously didn't want to go through the whole publicity aspect of it, but something like this would definitely take longer. I can see TikTok right now as if I was in their legal department. They're getting hit by all sides right here, and they had a really, really nice run. But the more growth they had and as quickly as they had, there was a price to pay, and I think now they have to answer for all of that growth and almost uncontrolled growth. They're going to have to start answering some questions, and I see some major changes coming for TikTok, whether that's in the administration, the ownership, or how it's being conducted. Because the law is very slow at times to move, but we're we're well versed when it comes to assessing harm and what the injury is. That's been getting done for hundreds of years. So that part we know how to use a law to get compensation for that part. And that's what TikTok is facing right now.
So I want to move on from that story to this story about the guy doing that online gambling. I guess FanDuel is the site here, right? But just to bring everyone up to speed, background here. Guy is working actually for the Jacksonville Jaguars of the NFL. And he's going online. He's gambling. Apparently gambling a lot of money. I think you wrote millions. Is that right?
Yeah, so he stole $20 million from the Jacksonville Jaguars, his employer. Now, remember, the NFL they have an agreement with FanDuel. They have a partnership. So this employee stole about $20 million, and most of that was going towards online gambling and trips. And what happened was he was obviously he got charged with a crime, and he's serving a jail sentence. But the amount of money that was stolen, he's now saying, "Hey, I want to get some of that money back." Because I have a gambling addiction, and the way that the FanDuel online gaming is set up, legally speaking, they're saying it was made to exploit someone who had a gambling addiction. And in terms of they always reaching out to them, hundreds of messages a day. Look at this, look at this, look at this. Bet on this, bet on that. I'm giving you a free trip if you bet on this. So tremendous amount of encouragement to keep gambling. And what the lawsuit says is, this company knew that I had an addiction. It's very obvious to know that I had an addiction based on how much time I spent on this, and they did nothing to have any safeguards to protect against it. So again, we're seeing online companies. They're so powerful because they can reach you while you're in your home on your couch. But more and more, we're going to start seeing government entities step in and say, okay, well, you went too far here. You got to have some protection set up to protect the citizens here. And what we're seeing on both sides, whether it's TikTok, social media, gambling, all aspects of business, there has to be some control set up, or you're going to be facing lawsuits like this.
By the way, I mean, don't these companies pay lip service to the idea that don't worry, we're not going to let you gamble beyond a certain point? It seems to me that's part of their ethos. At least I thought some of them.
That's exactly it, and it's there for not just because of a moral obligation, but from a legal perspective, you have to have that embedded in the way you operate. You have to have these protections set up so that no one can turn around and say you were reckless when you went for profit without considering what the harm would be.
So that said, in a case like this, I mean, I'm sure some people listening to this, Chris, are thinking, wait a sec, you know what? You have a problem. You're gambling away this money. And now that you're asking for it back, does this even have legs?
Well, it has legs because many people will say, well, where are the parental controls? Why weren't the parents involved? And that is something that obviously it will play into these trials. But at the end of the day, what the courts will look at is say, look, the way you're operating your business, did you know that doing this can cause this type? Can you expect it? Was it a probability that you'd have young users being woken up at night because they get these notifications about a new reel by one of their influencers? And if you did, well, then what did you do to stop that? And if they have no answer for that, well, then they're going to be in some deep legal trouble, that's for sure.
It's weird, though, because even if that was to happen, right, and they would get, I don't know, they'd have to come up with some sort of a payment or admit fault to some degree and pay off a few $1 million. These are billion-dollar companies. It doesn't necessarily mean they're going to change their business model, though, I would think, because there's still too many users. At some point, aren't we kind of, looking at this technology and, hoping we can make it better, but not really believing it's going to get any better?
Right, and I think what you just raised is the most important point. The bigger the company is and the more mainstream the technology is, the harder it is to impose restrictions. And it's almost like, if you would have caught it early, you might have been able to really have some impactful change. But now it's almost like the floodgates are open. How do you grapple with this? How do you get this back to and contain it to where it respects all the different legal parameters of safety and protection? Very, very difficult to do. And a lawsuit by itself is going to be very difficult to impose that. So I agree with you 100%. It's gotten to a point now where it might be past the point of in having these types of controls.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it, when you stop and think about gambling sites, for example? It's like, we want you to gamble, but not too much. Right. We don't want you to lose everything you have, just some of what you have. Even Lotto Quebec, I mean, even here, right, where it's tightly controlled, there are, I believe, measures in place to prevent people, right, who have a gambling addiction from spending all that money. There are some things here, some kind of guardrails.
As long as your business model doesn't, for example, TikTok, an algorithm that actually is set up so that you maximize time on it, so you don't get off, that's where you cross the line.
I got it. Chris, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thanks, sir.